The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sue Tensfelt, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Succession Planning, Using Innovation in Workforce Development Programming, sponsored by Baywork. Baywork is a consortium of Bay Area water and wastewater utilities working together to ensure that we'll have the reliable workforce needed to serve our customers and protect the environment. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. We've taken a screenshot of the attendee interface. You should see a control panel in the upper right corner of your screen. GoToWebinar will automatically default to your computer speaker system. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select Telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. After logging on, your microphone will automatically be muted. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing in your questions to the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and try to address as many questions as we can, once during the middle of the presentation and again at the end, time permitting. Today's presentation will be recorded and will soon be available on our website at baywork.org. I would now like to introduce Robert Scott, the Vice Chair of Baywork, who will be the moderator for today's webinar. Hello, Robert.
Hi, Sue, and good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you again to Baywork's webinar on succession planning using innovation in workforce development program. We're so glad to have our presenter, Sherry Jones, with us today. Sherry is the Workforce Development Specialist at Charlotte Water, the third largest department in the city. She is a seasoned workforce development professional with more than 25 years of combined business and education experience. She's an active member with several local and national workforce development strategic teams. Sherry has been instrumental in the successful development of strategic workforce initiatives at both the department and city level. She is passionate about the workforce and assisting the unemployed and underemployed in setting and achieving their goals, which is evident in her positive working relationships that she has been establishing and cultivating internally and externally and work with workforce development partners. Prior to her current role, which began in 2017, Sherry excelled as an entrepreneur and an adjunct instructor specializing in marketing, programming development, and workforce career readiness. Throughout her career, Sherry has received extensive experience providing direct services for small to mid-sized businesses, from CEOs to entry-level employees, and has proven success in process improvement and employee retention through audits and essential skills training. So, without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Sherry Jones, our presenter for today. Let me share my screen. Sherry, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Robert. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. And I also want to thank the Baywork team for inviting me to be the presenter today. And I'm just excited to share this information. I am, like you said, passionate about workforce development, and that includes sharing information, creating opportunities, and empowering others. Before I continue, Robert, can everyone see my screen?
Not at the moment, Sherry.
Okay. Can you reshare it? Because I clicked yes.
All right, let's try this again.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion, everyone. There we go.
Okay, that's better.
Yes.
All right. Before we begin, can we please take a pulse check on the audience with the first poll question, Robert?
Sure. Let's do that. And here's the first poll question. And it reads, to what level is your understanding of succession planning strategies? I am completely green. I have some basic knowledge. I have a solid background. I am an expert. I see answers coming in. To what level is your understanding of succession planning strategies? Again, I am completely green. I have some basic knowledge. I have a solid background. I am an expert. All right, great. We got answers coming in. I'm gonna give it a few more seconds. I see a few haven't responded yet. Okay, we're closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, let me share the results here.
Okay. It looks like 76% of you have some basic knowledge. So I'm going off of that percentage because that was the highest. And there were just a few that were completely green, and 18% have a solid background. And that is great. Wherever you place yourself, this webinar is going to be for you. I am sure you're going to capture a nugget or two that's going to help you with your succession planning by using innovation in workforce development programs. So you are in the right place. All right, we can close that poll. Hold on. Okay, so in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, workforce development professionals started to realize that something is going to happen in 2020. So they started with a 2020 initiative, where they realized that there were going to be many jobs in 2020, but not enough workers that were skilled to do those jobs. So yeah, we do have a lot of jobs available, but we just don't have the people to put into those jobs to be able to do those jobs effectively and efficiently. So around that time in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, you would have seen more community colleges sprouting up with workforce development programs that were training individuals in the trades as well as technology. And several years ago, there was a task force report done, and in that report, they researched 50 major cities across the United States, and they researched them on their transportation, education, and access to employment. And Charlotte ranked 50 out of the 50 cities that were identified. And that meant that a person that was born in poverty in Charlotte, North Carolina, would have a higher instance of remaining in poverty because of the lack of job opportunities or the lack of access to those job opportunities. And as you can see on the map here, it's showing you the upward mobility in the United States and the odds of reaching the top 5th. So Charlotte was at the bottom 5th, the 50th out of 50 cities. So as you can imagine, those statistics did not sit well with the city of Charlotte. And the city of Charlotte is our local government, and there are several departments under the umbrella of the city of Charlotte. Charlotte Water is one of the many departments, and we are the 3rd largest department, just under police and fire. And we have roughly 1,000 employees. And so the city was like, you know what, this is not going to be good. Charlotte is growing. It's becoming a popular city. There's so many people moving here. It's about 60 people moving to Charlotte on a daily basis. What can be done? Something needs to be done. And so in addition to that problem, they realized that succession planning had to be part of the solution, because research has also shown that by the year 2023, 1,973 employees from the city will be eligible to retire. And out of that number, 293 of them will be employees from Charlotte Water. So that is a huge chunk of our employees that will be leaving the workforce or have the opportunity to leave the workforce. And that's a lot of industry knowledge that possibly can walk out with them unless a succession plan is in place. So in 2017, the city of Charlotte registered an apprenticeship program with the Department of Labor, and it was a wide umbrella, the registration, so that the other departments within the city could register their own apprenticeship programs under that one umbrella. In 2018, Charlotte Water started its first apprenticeship program. In 2019, we started our Charlotte Water Pipeline Academy internship program. And also in 2019, the city of Charlotte, because of the success that Charlotte Water has had, they created a career pathways training program for interns over 7 departments. There are 49 interns. So that is a huge way to make a difference, to have an impact on the problem. And before I continue with how Charlotte Water developed its programs, I'd like to open it up, Robert, for another poll question, please.
Sure. I'll launch our second poll question. All right. Does your organization have a succession plan in place? Yes, no, sort of, not sure. Does your organization have a succession plan in place? All right, I see answers coming. Responses. Okay. All right, I'll give it a few more seconds. All right, I'm going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And let me share the results.
Okay, it looks like we're tied with sort of at 32% and not sure. And if you're not sure, you can actually start with yourself. Do you have, just thinking to yourself, do you have what you do on a day-to-day basis, or how you go about with your programs or projects? Are those steps written down? If they're not, then you don't have a succession plan. 26% of you said no, and 11% said yes, and that is great. All right, so let's go into the meat and the heart of it all. Okay. So the first thing that I had to do was research. Now, I was hired in the fall of 2017 with knowledge of workforce development, but I had no knowledge of the utilities industry. I was hired because of my wealth of experience in workforce development, training, and program development, but it was up to me to really seek out information about utilities and specifically about Charlotte Water, and that took a lot of research. So what I did was I did ride-alongs as well as job shadowing. I sat down with employees and leaders in the different divisions to learn more about what they do. With 1,000 employees and nearly 212 different positions that range from GED to PhD, that took a lot of research. And luckily, Charlotte Water hired 2 of us, so we both were able to capture the information regarding the different positions, the skills that it took to do those positions, and really narrow it down to which position could be an apprenticeship. In addition to learning more about Charlotte Water, in order to really get the buy-in from the leadership, I felt it was necessary to see what other utilities had a robust workforce development program in place. Because if I could say, this particular utilities has been doing it for X amount of years with this type of success, I felt it would definitely build more confidence and buy-in from the leadership. So I cold called several utilities across the United States, from San Francisco to Camden, New Jersey, and I asked questions regarding their programs, and somehow by just cold calling, I was able to really get the gatekeepers, the people that were putting the programs into place, the people that were handling the participants in the programs, and they were really open with sharing the information regarding their programs, and it was very, very helpful for us. So in addition to the utilities companies across the country, I also spoke with community colleges and workforce development agencies in our area to talk to them about the participants that they had and to let them know that we were going to be having a program that could possibly hire their clients, their students. And so that, all of that, putting that together was very helpful with developing our program. So the second step was the development. So the research that I did, I had to put pen to paper and really craft what was this program going to look like? How is this program going to help with succession planning? How is this program going to help turn around the fact that we were number 50 out of 50 in the task force report? All of those things were going through my mind as I started to craft the position, the apprenticeship program. So in terms of determining which position was going to be the first for the apprenticeship, we concluded that Field Operations Division Utility Technician 1 position would be the best suited, because that position was the only one that we could find that was somewhat ready for succession planning, because they had already crafted a skills matrix for the first year in that position as well as the second year in that position. And so with that information, we were able to develop a skills competency checklist. And those are the types of documents that the Department of Labor required regarding the on-the-job training. And they wanted to make sure that the skills that they were going to learn were robust, and we could determine the time frame that it would take for them to acquire those skills. And so that position also for Charlotte Water is a very critical position. And I know in all utilities, field operations, small construction crews is very important, because they are the ones that ensure that water is flowing to the residents, to the commercial properties, without any issues. So they are very, very important. That position for us has a high turnover rate due to retention as well as promotion. So we have about 45 vacancies per year in that position. And as a Department of Labor registered apprenticeship program, you have to ensure that at the end, if a participant has acquired the skills, that there is a position for them. If there's not a position, that cannot be an apprenticeship position. So in other words, if they can't be hired full-time because there's no full-time opportunities for them at the end of the program, then that's not a healthy apprenticeship. Okay, so before I begin, or before I continue, because I know you probably all have questions or thoughts or concerns, but we're going to get to those as well. But Robert, before I continue with how the skills competency checklist was crafted, can you please ask another poll question?
Sure. I'll launch our third poll question here. And it reads, has your organization outlined what a new hire will learn in the first 6 months or year? Has your organization outlined what a new hire will learn in the first 6 months or year? Yes, no, sort of, not sure. Okay, I see responses coming in. Okay. All right, great. We'll give it a few more seconds here. All right, I'm going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let me share the results.
Okay, so it looks like 25% said yes, 25% said no, and 44% said sort of, and 6% they're not sure. So I'm just going to, since it seems like it's kind of across the board, I'm going to leave it at this. So for those that said sort of or not sure, if you have not written down what those skills are that a new person, an entry-level position or any position would learn in the first 6 months to 1 year, if it's not written down, then you don't have one. And I appreciate the 25% that said no and the 25% that said yes. If you said yes, that's great. And there's still nuggets that I'm sure that you can acquire from this. So what we did, we took the skills matrix that the utility technician 1 were to acquire in their first year and comprised a document that we called the Apprenticeship Program Skills Competency Checklist. And there, the mentors could see what the classroom performance expectations were for the apprentices, the on-the-job training performance expectations, and how to rate their performance. Now, their performance rating was developed utilizing the Performance Review Development Document, the PRD, that is used for all employees once a year, because we wanted to try to see how can we measure, what can be used to measure how the apprentices are doing without it being a 1 to 5 type of scale. We wanted it to have a little more rigor to it, a little more meaning, have more depth. And so we found that the performance rate that is used for the PRD would be the best, and it also was helping to develop the mentors into future leaders, because they would be in position in the future, or even right now if they were new to their role, in providing that type of rating to their employees that were on their teams. So as you can see on the bottom, we have the rating scale. U is unacceptable performance, M is marginal, A, performance achieved, E, performance exceeded expectation, X, exceptional performance. And that is how the mentors would rate the apprentices utilizing this type of checklist. Now, in addition to industrial safety, physical strength and aptitude, fundamental skills, trades math, field operations, and practical applications and certifications were also skills that were rated. And we rated them on every 3 months. So quarterly they were rated, and they could see their growth every time that they were checked. Now, as an apprentice, they don't start at the regular rate. They were working on a wage progression. Here in Charlotte, our employees work at a Charlotte Water. We work on a 90% pay scale for the market value. And so our apprentices started at 82.5% of that pay scale at 6 months. If they had acquired all the skills as an acceptable achieved performance, then they got a wage increase to 85%. And then at 12 months, at the completion of the program, they were up to speed and at the pay rate that the regular UT1s were being paid at. So their wages were determined on how well that they acquired the new skills that they were learning. And all of our apprentices came in with no prior experience or knowledge in the water, wastewater industry. We were just looking for people that were willing to work hard, learn, and be on a path for a career and not just a job. In addition to the evaluation on their skills, we also used an opportunity to do coaching and counseling. So we would speak to the mentors and ask, what has the apprentice done well since the last conversation, and what challenges they may have experienced, or what's to come for their training. Also, I want to just go back a little bit to this checklist. This checklist not only allows the apprentice to see how they progress, but it also works well for the mentor to see what other skills they may need to cover, or what they may need to go over again if the apprentice was still at a marginal rating. So with the coaching and counseling part of the evaluation, we would speak to the mentor first, then to the apprentice to ask them with self-awareness, what were some positives that they've experienced in, since the last conversation, and what challenges they may be experiencing. And their challenges sometimes did not include things that were going on at the job. Sometimes their challenges could be something personal, and that may have equated to a challenge that the mentor had noticed. So for instance, we had a situation where the apprentice was coming in with wrinkled clothing, and yeah, it's a dirty job, but they want them to start off, neat and clean and well presented. So when I spoke with the apprentice, it turns out that he was living in a one-bedroom apartment with 8 different people, and everyone had a different time frame, and he didn't have an opportunity or didn't know to lay his clothes out the night before. So during that coaching session, that was my recommendation to him, understanding his situation, was to get his clothes ready the night before so that he's not getting dressed in the dark and just reaching for anything. And it's simple things like that, that if it's not addressed, could hinder a person's employability. And oftentimes those little things that if they were understood could prevent someone from not being gainfully employed. So we were glad to be able to work through that. And a lot of situations like that will come up during those challenging moments in the coaching and counseling portion of the conversations. So once we had all of that information down, it was time to do the schedule. So since it was a one-year program, I knew that I needed 52 weeks of a schedule regarding classroom training as well as on-the-job training. And so I created the 52-week schedule, and I reached the outside trainers for financial literacy, health and wellness, and diversity training. And I confirmed with Charlotte Warder the different guest speakers that were coming in. And I also had to schedule the meeting places that all of their classroom training was going to take place. They're on the job training. I sat down with the trainers as well as the zone managers and their mentors. And we realistically looked at the 52-week calendar to determine which skills they would be hitting on during the course of the program. And so the calendar was really very, very detailed in terms of, what they could expect. They knew what to look forward to, and it kept everyone really on track. It was really helpful to have that schedule in place. We had the mentor training because with the registered apprenticeship, you have a 2-to-1 ratio of apprentices to mentors. So we had utilized crew chiefs, and we wanted to make sure, even though that they were experts in the field, that they could break down what they were going to teach into pieces. It was like, I equated it to teaching a child how to tie their shoes. It's something that we do and take for granted because we could do it with our eyes closed. But if you're teaching a child, you have to teach them step by step. And that's how we wanted them to translate the new skills to our apprentices. So what we did, we took a day and we laid out what the expectations for the program was, what we wanted the outcomes to be, and we had the mentors train at our field operations training facility. And we had different rotations that included service repair, hydrant operation valves, sewer main repair, laterals, and equipment identification like the tamp, the air compressor, etc. And, just to understand where they had to teach the understanding of the what, the why, and the how. So one of the other examples that we used was the spacing of cones for flagging a construction site. And, there's different distances that a person would use for residential cones to be set out and a different distance for commercial cones to be set out. And so not just telling the apprentice to put the cones out, you are really going into explaining why they would be at different distances because of the different types of work sites. With our hiring process, we already had a really good network of external partners, but because we are under the umbrella of the city of Charlotte, they really were kind of the drivers. And this was a pilot program. The city wanted us to use one source in addition to it being posted on the job board. Our goal was to hire 8, and we ended up with 5 strong candidates who started on June 18th, 2018. We held a signing ceremony, and Charlotte Water and the City of Charlotte leadership were in attendance. It was a really amazing thing. I mean, because it took a lot of energy to put the program together. So it was really exciting to see it all unfold. They signed their apprenticeship agreements and received their badges. They really felt welcomed into Charlotte Water, and they all said that they've never experienced anything like that before. Some of them were very shy. I mean, things were posted on Twitter, and, just their pictures were put up on our television screens, and so employees were welcoming them. They even pasted their pictures on some of the walls at the zones that they were in, so it was a real welcome for them. So step 5 was the onboarding and classroom training. And one thing that really impressed me about Charlotte Water is how many people worked for this organization for 15, 20, 30 plus years. And many of them started in entry-level positions and were just promoted up the career ladder. That was so impressive to me, and I really felt that their stories needed to be shared with our apprentices, because I wanted them to see that this was not just a job, it was a career. And look where this person is now, but look where they started. They started where you are. And so everything is possible. It's one of those dare to dream moments. And so I had guest speakers come, and like I said, all throughout Charlotte, and they shared their experience. They were encouraging. They were open for any kind of questions. And so in addition to that, they also were able to see other parts of Charlotte Water, because so many people, I mean, myself included, before I started, you don't realize how massive the utilities industry is. So it gave them an opportunity to see a lot of things that the normal employee doesn't always get an opportunity to see. And so with the classroom training, the Department of Labor requires at least 144 classroom hours, but we had 164 built into our program. They also received the American Water Works Association, AWWA, customer service certification, which really is helpful as they sometimes interface with customers out in the field. They also did Working Smart's Fundamental Skills. This is a course that myself and a co-facilitator taught. I highly recommend it. It's a game changer. It's 5 modules with 16 different lessons, and it really helps them with their self-awareness and gets them workplace ready. The modules are very interactive. They do role playing, public speaking, is lots of hands-on activity, lots of movement. It really addresses all different types of learners and is never a dull moment in Working Smart. They are able to extract a nugget that they'll take with them, things that they'll change within themselves, within their lives from each and every lesson. We always ask at the end of each lesson, what are you going to take away from this lesson? I'm going to go back. I might have went through it too fast just so you can see the types of courses that are taught. We have personal branding, self-change, the cognitive cycle, which is something that I reiterate during all of the evaluations because it goes into what your beliefs are because of where you grew up, how you were raised, things that you've experienced, and how those beliefs aren't always true. They don't always hold true for the situation. Once you get into a stressful situation, you have to be very mindful of why that is happening and also continuously understand what you want the outcome to be, what you want your goal to be. Your goal is to be gainfully employed, and sometimes your reactions don't always support that. But if you understand your warning signs, it really helps you to not make decisions or not do things that will not support where you want to be in life. We talked about dealing with stress, warning signs, personal reactions, staying calm and clear, employer expectations, code switching, how to act on the job versus at home, and there's a difference. Active listening, the 4 C's of communication, expressing concern, handling feedback. You know, that's something that you'll get, especially when you're new to a position and not everyone can handle feedback. But in this course, they learn how to do that. Problems and goals, facts versus opinions, and time management. And so going through that, they also received a certification, which they all were so proud of. This is a 32-hour course, so it was over the course of 4 days. And they not only became more self-aware, but they became more conscious of others and are able to make better decisions based on their desired outcomes and goals. So for step 6, on-the-job training, OJT. And so most of their learning came from on-the-job training, and that was over 2,000 hours. And that includes overtime because in their position, they have on-call schedules as well as overtime. So they actually went over the 2,000 required hours. And so apprentices were paid, like I said, on a wage progression scale. And sometimes, well, initially people were like, oh my goodness, are they going to accept that because everyone else is making so much? What we learned is our hope is to have each class an apprenticeship class because they actually came in with regular UT1s. And of course, locker room talk, they all found out how much each other made. But in the long run, our apprentices really trusted the process and they recognized the value that they were getting over and beyond what the regular employees were getting. The regular employees had also recognized that and were starting to question, like, well, why are the apprentices able to do this or why are they getting that? But in reality, what we were offering our apprentices is available to all employees. It's just a matter of them taking advantage of it or not. And so what our apprenticeship program does, it sets them up to develop new habits of taking advantage of professional development opportunities. And because it's part of their curriculum, it's part of their program, and it's just now become who they are because they know, like, oh, there's things out there that I can do to make me a better person or to be able to do my job better or to skill me up for my next move. And so once we share that with the employees, you know, not only are you getting paid more, but you have access to this, you're just not taking advantage. It in turn makes a better environment for all the employees because now many more of them are starting to reach out and want to have their resume updated, want to take classes that are offered not only through Charlotte Water, but also on the city level. You know, so it's really building a culture of wanting more, of learning, and that is going to help the succession planning because you can't just hire at the top always to replace what is leaving. You have to build it up with the culture. You have to groom it from the bottom up. And so that's what we're doing as a whole. I did on-site visits along with the quarterly evaluations to see them on the job actually doing what they, were hired to do as apprentices, and they all did a great job. So step 7 is the graduation, and we really made a big deal around their graduation. It was held at the government center, and their families and work zone families attended along with Charlotte Water leadership and the City of Charlotte leaders. It was well attended. I think it exceeded everyone's expectations, the graduation, because it was so well attended. It had so much value, and the value was really, really exposed through the presentations. We invited the North Carolina Department of Labor to come and present the new graduates with their certificates and journeyman cards. So these are our results. In June 2018, our first apprenticeship cohort was hired. And in June 2019, they graduated. We had a 60% completion. And all apprentices that have graduated are on track for promotions. All of them have been promoted to Utility Technician 2. One of the requirements for a Utility Technician 1 is to acquire their CDL, Class A tanker endorsement. And typically it takes about 18 months for a UT1 to get that. And all of our apprentices received their CDL license within the first 8 months. By early 2020, which is where we are now, we're gearing up as we speak to start our next apprenticeship class, and we are going to increase our size by 40%. We're looking to hire 12 new apprentices, and we're also trying to position it so that position will be a permanent entry-level apprenticeship, so that each person that's hired as a UT1 will be an apprentice. Okay, so before I go into our Pipeline Academy, I like to pause right here and to see if there are any questions.
All right, Sherry, we do have one question here. Michael is asking, do you plan to add longer apprenticeships for more highly skilled employees in the trades?
Yes, that's a great question, Michael. Thank you for asking that. We are looking into the operator position for the wastewater treatment plant. We understand that there are a lot of certifications and grades that they have to accomplish in order to maintain that position. And so those types of positions typically take 2 to 4 years to complete. So that is definitely in our pipeline.
All right. That's the only question we have right now. We'll have another opportunity. Oh, another one just came in.
Okay.
Is Charlotte Water unionized? Do you have any suggestions for how to build this type of program for a union environment?
That's a great question. No, we are not part of a union. However, I have spoken with other utilities. The majority of them, actually, that I had spoken with were part of a union. And I think once the union understands the value of a program like this in terms of return on investment and the fact that you are skilling up a workforce to do exactly what you need them to do, but at the same time, they are innovative and are bringing new ideas, a freshness to the workplace. I believe that they can be, the buy-in can happen with them as well.
Okay. We got a couple
I think
more
return on
here.
investment would be the best thing. Okay.
All right. Corey, that question was from Kathy. Corey asked, what is code switching?
So, Corey, code switching involves what you do at home is not always appropriate for what you do at work. It might be the way that you talk to people. It might be the fact that you open up the refrigerator at home and drink out of the container. And even though your workplace may have a refrigerator and they may have juices in the refrigerator, you can't just open it up and drink out of it. It could also be the tone that you use with your coworkers versus the tone you may use with your children. And ultimately, even with that, because of social media is really hard to code switch, people really need to be who they are through and through, regardless, personal or professional. We encourage our participants to take their new knowledge, their new understanding and self-awareness and share it with their family and friends so that the change doesn't just happen with them, it happens with everyone around them. So it goes into how they communicate with other people, their different habits that they may have that aren't highly looked upon at the workplace, really shouldn't be highly looked upon in the home either. But, people act differently in different situations, but we're, really trying to make them aware of what they're doing and to protect their brand as well as the company's brand.
Okay, we're getting more questions now. I'm going to cover a couple more and then we'll move forward. We'll get the other ones at the end if we have time. So the next question is from Carla. She asked, do your apprentices attend classes on their own time?
That's a great question, Carla. No, we built the classroom portion of the apprenticeship program into their 8-hour day.
All right, and one more question for this time frame. Mark is asking, what process do you use to find potential candidates?
Yes, Marcus. So for this first round of our apprentices, we utilized Charlotte Works, which is the governing body for the workforce board here in this region of North Carolina. Also, we used the posting on the city's website for the jobs available. Moving forward, especially with our next session, I'll go into more detail about how we utilize our external workforce development agency partners.
All right, let's proceed.
All right, perfect. Thank you guys for the questions. Okay, so we recognized that we needed another type of workforce development program in addition to the apprenticeship program because not all of the divisions were ready to have an apprenticeship program and not all of them were really positioned to be an apprenticeship because they didn't have as many openings or any at all. They just knew that for succession planning, they would need people in place that can do that type of work in the future. So we created the Charlotte Water Pipeline Academy, and that was created in September of 2018. And it was a modified version of our apprenticeship program. So instead of 1 year, it was actually 7 months. And so we had determined that, we needed to skill up the workforce and create opportunities for people in the community to get skilled up, to be that pool for us for the future. So similar to the apprenticeship program, we created a skills matrix, which is going to be helpful for those divisions and those positions to have for their succession planning, because we sat down with the leaders, we did ride-alongs, job shadows, and we created this skills competency checklist for what a new hire would learn in the first 6 months of on-the-job training. And from those conversations, from those ride-alongs, we determined that a lift station technician, wastewater treatment plant mechanic, dispatcher, water meter service technicians, which are / investigators, warehouse laborers, utility technician 1, and meter shop repair technicians would be perfect for this pipeline academy. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to show you too. Well, you can't really see it too much, but instead of tracking them every quarter, because it was only a 6-month training, we track them every month. So each month, the interns are evaluated utilizing the PRD rating system as well. And partnerships. I believe it was, I can't recall who, but one of the questions was about how did we find or hire participants for our programs. And so what we did was we partnered with external workforce development partners in our community, and that included Charlotte Works, Urban League, Goodwill, Job Corps, community college, high schools, the CTE programs, just a lot of different partners. And initially what we did was we hosted a roundtable discussion where 33 people from 25 different agencies and schools came to hear more about Charlotte Water, our programs, and how we could collaborate. It was a very powerful meeting. It was probably one of the first times that many different agencies were under one roof discussing something that was common, and we're all in an agreement. And, you know, we were the employer, and we have enough opportunity, so they all were really, really excited about being there and about how they can help. At the time, we knew we wanted to hire 10 Pipeline Academy interns, and so we described to them what type of candidates we were looking for. And, you know, we were looking for the unemployed, the underemployed, 18 to 27. However, if it exceeded 27, that was no problem. They needed to have a driver's license, a high school diploma or GED. No experience was required because we were just looking for people willing to learn, work hard, and be on a career path. So with our internship, also, we let them know that we were not guaranteeing these participants a job at the end. However, if they worked hard and exhibited those characteristics that we could utilize and we had a place for them where they can transfer their skills, then we would at all means try to hire them within Charlotte Water. However, if we didn't have an opportunity, maybe another department within the city of Charlotte or another utilities in the region. So in addition to our partners coming to that roundtable discussion, we also had what we called a 3-hour tour. So we hosted three-hour tours where we had a van, and Sean Kaufman, our deputy director, was the tour guide. And we took them to our wastewater treatment plants, to, you know, many of our facilities where our customer service people are, just different things. And for 3 hours, they were able to learn and see who we are at Charlotte Water. And I mean, their minds, you could see their minds working because they had no idea that we had so many different opportunities. They were already thinking of, you know, some of their clients that would be perfect. So from that, 9 out of 10 of our pipeline interns were hired from those referrals. We also had Train the Trainer, where we were focusing more on soft skills, communication, feedback, and active listening. This was a little different than what we did with the mentors. And I think it was because, well, I know it was because the mentors all were going to have apprentices doing the same type of work. Whereas with these trainers, they were getting interns that were going to do a variety of things. So for hiring, on their first day, we invited their trainers, supervisors, and administrative officers to their onboarding for a panel and for lunch so that they can get to know them. For the first month, now it was a 7-month program. 6 months of it was on-the-job training. But the first month, we did Working Smart, which is the fundamental skills, financial literacy, health and wellness, as well as diversity training. We had guest speakers from all over Charlotte Water, as well as tours of Charlotte Water. So it really opened up their minds. Now, when these particular interns applied, they did not apply to one specific position. They applied to the opportunity. And it was through their application, through their interview process, we were able to really pinpoint where they would probably be a best fit in the program. And we were pretty much spot on. To this moment, I don't know how we were able to do that, but we really were able to match them very well with a job, with an opportunity in the internship program, and they were able to get skilled up in it. For on-the-job training, it was 6 months, and they had the monthly evaluations, and which also included the coaching and counseling. So if the trainer were having a challenge, that was a great opportunity for them to bring that out. If the intern was having a challenge, it was a lot of, bringing everyone to the table and really being that mediator for them, to be able to facilitate better communication, to really work with our interns on better work ethics and habits, things that we take for granted. And one of the things that came out of all of that was, what is common to you is not common to all. So we had to really help our trainers understand, you find that to be common because that's something you do, but this is brand new to this particular person. So don't assume that it's common to them. Really go into explaining, and especially the why. We're finding that with this generation, why is really important. And so for graduation, we had a 90% success rate, and the goal was to skill them up, and all of them were hired in some capacity with Charlotte Water. A couple of them stayed in the positions that they were in, and others were able to transfer their skills into other positions. And they are all on an amazing career path. And in terms of the results, they were hired February 2019. That was our first cohort. They graduated August 2019. 90% graduated. 100% of them were retained and employed by Charlotte Water. And our graduates of this program experienced an average of 66% pay increase. And our second pipeline academy interns were hired in October of 2019. We have 15 interns who are currently receiving on-the-job training across 4 different divisions within Charlotte Water. And this is our new class of our cohorts, and the positions that they're working in is wastewater treatment plant mechanic assistant, wastewater treatment plant office assistant, warehouse laborers, water meter service techs, CCTV techs, manhole inspector, construction inspector, and lift station technician. And because of the success of our programs, the city of Charlotte has adopted this concept. And in October of 2019, they started a 6-month training program called Career Pathways with 49 interns across 7 different departments. So before I end this webinar, in closing, I want you just to consider, you may think that it's a lot of work, that you don't have time. But can you really afford your industry knowledge to retire and leave your organization? Can we afford the workforce not to be skilled up? Can we afford a workforce who are not self-aware? And the answer across the board is no. Succession planning using innovation and workforce development programming is a all-hands-on-deck approach. And these programs are game changers for your organization, for the participants, and for the community as a whole. So this is concluding my presentation, and I want to thank you, and I also want to thank Baywork for having me, and to the listeners for tuning in. Robert, do we have time for a few questions at this time?
Yes, we have a few more minutes remaining. Catherine is asking, what type of support did you get to create this program from your management?
Well, it was really important to have buy-in from the management. So I really believe that management trusted that what we were going to do was going to be the right thing. They really gave, and I have to really credit Carol and Ross for this, for giving me free rein to really develop relationships with external partners, with other utilities, being able to bring new knowledge into the, to use for the program. It was a clean slate, something that had to be developed from the ground up, something that I love to do. And so, it's like building a house, decorating a room, it's, putting all the pieces together. And so management was on board because they understand the need and the urgency of succession planning and getting the skills captured and developing the next generation to come in to be able to take Charlotte Water to the next level.
Okay, and we'll answer one more question here. Carla asked, is your mentor program official and well organized?
That's a great question. So it's not official yet. However, we've been having many meetings amongst the training team to develop a more official mentor program that will have checks and balances, you know, the training component, the support, and to be able to match. We want to do a really good internal mentor program as well as a great program for our workforce development participants.
All
so
right.
That's in development.
Okay. There are a couple more questions in the queue. We'll answer those via email or something if we can. Sherry, I'd like to thank you for presenting such great information and sharing your great experience with us. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We want all of you to please stay tuned for other Baywork events. Also, we want to invite you to visit our website at baywork.org. Please know that the recording of this webinar will be made available for viewing soon at baywork.org. Additionally, we will email contact hour certificates to those who answered yes to the question regarding them on the registration form. Lastly, we really want to know your thoughts about this webinar. Please take a moment to complete the survey you will receive immediately after we are done. It's only 3 questions. Sherry, do you have any final words?
Just, this is something that needs to be done, and I wish everyone good luck. You can reach out to me if you have additional questions or concerns, or if you need assistance, just let me know. I'm available.
Great. Well, we appreciate you doing this today again, Sherry. And on behalf of Baywork, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Please have a great rest of your day and the rest of the week. Until next time, goodbye.